Battle cries and explosions ripped through the vacuum of space as General Pryler watched human blood splatter against the cockpit of a decimated UEA starfighter, blasted to molten shreds by the Martian fleet. The seasoned alien commander gripped the rail of his cloaked observation deck, transfixed by the savagery and sheer tenacity of the human warriors below on the rocky lunar surface of Io-6. The United Earth Alliance Marines were outnumbered 5-1, their position overrun, medbays filled with plasma-seared corpses and screaming wounded, supplies almost gone, and yet they fought on with a ferocity Pryler had never seen in his 300 years leading the Voxari armies, not an ounce of surrender in their battle-hardened eyes. Captain John Robinson rallied his bloodied men for one final push. He knew they would likely all die painful deaths, ripped apart by Martian claws and fangs. But the precious ore deep in Io-6's core could power Earth's planetary shields for another decade. Without it, 20 billion humans would be defenseless against the ravenous swarm. So the captain barked the order to fix bayonets and charge as bullets and bolts whizzed by his stubbled face. Pryler zoomed in the high-def holofeed, mandibles slack in shock and awe. He had to see how this ended. He had to understand the humans' source of strength against insurmountable odds. He sensed that unlocking their secret could change the course of the galaxy. And after witnessing the carnage below, Pryler knew one thing for certain: his days as a Voxari general were numbered. Pryler returned to his command ship, the obsidian-hulled Voxari dreadnought Zexar, still reeling from what he had witnessed on Io-6. The savage brutality and indomitable will of the humans in the face of certain death had shaken him to his core. He stalked through the dimly lit corridors, ignoring salutes from subordinates as he beelined for his private quarters. The door slid shut with a hiss, and Pryler slumped into his chair, mandibles twitching. He pulled up the Voxari database on his holoscreen and typed in a single word: humans. The screen filled with images, videos, and text documents detailing Earth's history. Pryler scanned through it all, absorbing every scrap of information like a sponge. He learned that despite their technological inferiority compared to the Voxari, with their plasma rifles and energy shields, humans had a long and bloody history of warfare, century after century of conflict, stretching back to their ancient past. Pryler watched grainy footage of humans charging out of trenches into machine gun fire, hurling themselves on grenades to save comrades, and staging daring raids deep behind enemy lines. Each story was filled with staggering bravery, selfless sacrifice, and brilliant strategy against overwhelming odds, just like on Io-6. Hours turned into days as Pryler delved deeper into the human psyche, neglecting his duties as a Voxari general. He pored over battle reports, military history books, and soldier memoirs, trying to decipher the source of their tenacity and spirit. He barely ate or slept, sustained by his burning need to understand. A chime at the door snapped him out of his research-fueled haze. "Enter," Pryler growled. Commander Zaxxon, his second-in-command, stepped inside and saluted. "Sir, you missed the strategic defense meeting. Again. The other generals are starting to talk. Is everything all right?" Pryler waved a clawed hand dismissively. "I'm fine, Zaxxon. Just busy with crucial research for our future military strategy. The humans are unlike any foe we've encountered. Cracking the code of their warrior spirit could give us a critical edge over the swarm." Zaxxon's brow furrowed. "With respect, sir, I fail to see how obsessing over a primitive species helps us against the swarm. We have the technological advantage. We should be focused on developing new weapons and ships, not studying ancient history." Pryler shot his subordinate a withering glare. "Do not presume to question my judgment, Commander. The Voxari way of war has barely changed in millennia, but these humans, they adapt, they innovate. They find a way to victory against impossible odds. That's what we need. Now leave me be." Zaxxon saluted stiffly and marched out, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. Alone again, Pryler turned back to the holoscreen, heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and anticipation. He had a feeling his research was building to a revelation that could shake the foundations of the Voxari Empire, and he would not rest until he found it. Pryler's clawed fingers tapped at the holoscreen, mandibles slack as he scanned through the classified Voxari intelligence reports. His eyes widened at the words Project Prometheus, and he leaned in closer, heart pounding. The reports were sparse on details, but painted a chilling picture. The humans had developed some kind of revolutionary superweapon that could alter the galactic balance of power. "Impossible," Pryler muttered under his breath. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." But the more he read, the more the pieces fell into place. The humans' uncanny ability to punch above their weight, their penchant for unorthodox tactics and brilliant gambles. What if it wasn't just fighting spirit, but a hidden technological ace up their sleeves? If the reports were true, the Voxari Empire itself could be at risk. Pryler shot to his feet, reports in hand, and marched to the bridge with purpose. He had to warn the High Command immediately, but as he laid out his findings to the assembled Voxari leadership, he was met with scoffs and eye rolls. "You've been cooped up in your quarters too long, Pryler," Admiral Jahn sneered. "Chasing human ghost stories, I think you've lost perspective." "I agree," said General Tarov. "These reports are thin gruel, fragments and whispers, no solid proof. You're grasping at nebulas." Pryler slammed a fist on the table, eyes flashing. "I am trying to protect our people. We cannot afford to underestimate the humans. We must investigate further before it's too late." But the High Command had made their decision. They ordered Pryler to drop his obsessive human research and refocus on the swarm threat at hand. Seething, Pryler gave a stiff salute and stormed off the bridge. Back in his quarters, Pryler paced like a caged animal, mind racing. He couldn't just let this go. The fate of the Voxari could be at stake. If the High Command refused to act, he would have to take matters into his own claws. He pulled up a star map and typed in a set of coordinates, heart hammering against his chest plates. It was distant and dangerous, with little chance of return. But he had to know the truth. Earth, humanity's homeworld. That's where he would find answers about the Prometheus project. That's where he would find proof to bring before the High Command. Pryler began making preparations for his secret mission, fully aware he was committing an act of treason that could cost him everything. But in his gut, he knew it would be worth the price. The future of his people hung in the balance, and Pryler would not fail them. Pryler's claws tapped against the controls of the Voxari stealth ship as it sliced through the inky void of space. The blue-green marble of Earth loomed larger on the view screen with each passing second. His heart raced with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. This unsanctioned mission could brand him a traitor, but he had to uncover the truth about the humans' Prometheus project, for the future of his people. As he approached the planet, Pryler's eyes widened in shock. A vast network of defense platforms and orbiting weapon batteries encircled the Earth like a bristling shell. Their configurations and emissions were far more sophisticated than the latest Voxari intelligence reports had indicated. He checked the readings again to be sure. There was no mistake. The humans' defensive technology had advanced by leaps and bounds. Pryler engaged the ship's cloaking field and held his breath as he wove through the overlapping sensor grids with expert precision. Sweat dripped down his scales. One mistake, one stray energy signature, and he'd be vaporized before he could even blink. But his skills won out. The stealth ship slipped through a gap and dove into the atmosphere undetected. Scans led Pryler to a remote military complex deep in a sun-baked desert. He set the ship down in a camouflaged ravine a few clicks away and activated his personal holographic disguise matrix. His reptilian form shimmered and melted, replaced by the appearance of a bald, dark-skinned human male in a crisply pressed uniform. Pryler checked his reflection in the cockpit glass. The disguise was flawless, even to himself. With a deep breath, Pryler snuck up to the perimeter fence and waited for an opening. Patrols were tight, but he timed his movements to their blind spots and slipped through into the maze of brutalist concrete buildings. He followed the flow of foot traffic, hacking door locks with brute force algorithms when needed. So far, his presence went unnoticed in the hustle and bustle. As he rounded a corner, Pryler heard a group of soldiers speaking in hushed, excited tones. He ducked into an alcove and focused his auditory implants on their conversation. "Gonna be wild, man. I heard this new Prometheus armor system is straight out of a comic book." "Hell yeah. Makes us paladins look like a bunch of Boy Scouts. I bet one guy in that rig could take on a whole Voxari platoon solo. Guess we'll find out at the demo today. Brass wants to see it in action against a bunch of drones, put it through its paces." Pryla's eyes widened. A live weapons test of the Prometheus system? Today, he had to find a way in. He shadowed the soldiers from a distance as they made their way deeper into the complex, toward a heavily reinforced bunker door. Guard bots scanned their credentials before allowing them through. Pryla's cloaking field shimmered as he piggybacked on their authorization, slipping in behind them just as the blast doors sealed shut with a pneumatic hiss. Pryla emerged onto a gantry overlooking a sprawling underground test chamber. A squad of bots bristling with weapons stood in neat rows on the floor below, and in the center, a single human figure in a sleek black exoskeleton suit. Cameras zoomed in on the suit, projecting the image onto a massive screen. Gasps echoed through the observation deck. Pryla couldn't believe his eyes. The armor was a marvel of engineering, all flowing curves and pulsing energy conduits. An integrated heads-up display glowed within the helmet visor. Sections of the suit's outer layer shifted and reconfigured, as if alive. The soldiers' movements were fluid and powerful, enhanced by the exoskeleton's synthetic muscle fibers. A large rifle was slung at its side, glowing with an ominous blue light. A voice boomed over the intercom. "Prometheus Paladin Tri-238, commence weapons test. All drones, engage." The bot surged forward, unleashing a hail of simulated rounds. But the Paladin was already moving, faster than Pryla thought possible. It dodged and weaved with preternatural agility, servos whirring. In a blur, it unslung its rifle and opened fire. Strobing bolts of plasma sliced through the air, unerringly striking down target after target. The drones dropped like metal flies. It was over in seconds. A shocked silence hung over the room. Pryla felt a cold dread settling in his gut. The Prometheus armor was decades beyond anything the Voxari had. Its speed, reflexes, and firepower were staggering. One soldier had just effortlessly obliterated an entire combat-rated bot platoon. If the humans had this technology, the implications crashed over Pryla like a tidal wave. He had to get this information back to the Voxari High Command. Now. Before it was too late. Pryla turned and sprinted for the exit, human disguise flickering around him, as 1,000 worst-case scenarios swirled in his head. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted under his feet, and he feared what it meant for the future of his species. Pryla's heart pounded as he sprinted through the winding corridors of the bunker, his disguise flickering with each hurried step. He had to get this intel back to the Voxari High Command before it was too late. As he rounded a corner, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking his path. It was Captain John Robinson, the human soldier who had overseen the Prometheus demonstration. Robinson's eyes narrowed. "I know what you are, Voxari. You're not leaving here with that information." Pryla tensed, claws flexing beneath his holographic disguise. "Stand aside, human. You don't know what you're up against." Robinson charged forward, launching a flurry of precise strikes at Pryla's vital points. The Voxari spy parried and countered, surprised by the human's skill and speed. They traded blows in a brutal dance, fists and feet colliding with armor and flesh. Pryla's superior strength gave him an edge, but Robinson's agility and unorthodox style kept him off balance. The human used the tight confines of the corridor to his advantage, bouncing off walls and lashing out from unexpected angles. As they grappled, Robinson grabbed Pryla's wrist and twisted, sending a surge of feedback through the disguise matrix. The hologram fizzled and died, revealing Pryla's true reptilian form. Robinson's eyes widened for a split second and he hesitated. It was all Pryla needed. He surged forward, slamming the human against the wall and pinning him with a forearm to the throat. Pryla raised a clawed fist, ready to crush Robinson's skull, but the human looked him straight in the eye and spoke a single word in flawless Voxari. "Ketsa. Wait." Pryler froze, his arm trembling. How do you know my language? Robinson held up his hands in a gesture of peace. I've been studying your people, your culture, your history. I don't want war between us. Pryler pressed his arm tighter. And yet you build weapons to destroy us. No, Robinson gasped. Prometheus is a shield, not a sword. We're not conquerors. We want to protect ourselves and others. Others? Pryler hissed. Like the Voxari? Robinson nodded. We're not so different, your people and mine. We both want a future for our children, a galaxy at peace. Pryler's mind raced. Could this human be telling the truth? Think about it, Robinson pressed. Your people's strength, our innovation. Together we could change things, forge a new path, an alliance for the ages. Pryler's grip loosened as he absorbed the human's words. The Voxari had always looked down on humans as primitives, but he had seen their courage, their tenacity, their brilliance, and he knew the swarm threat loomed over them all. Slowly, Pryler lowered his fist and stepped back. Robinson rubbed his throat, watching the Voxari warily. An uneasy silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and peril. Pryler paused, considering Robinson's words. The human knew his language, his culture. That was more than most Voxari bothered to learn about their own allies, let alone a species they considered beneath them. And the way Robinson spoke of peace, of a future where their people stood together against the darkness, it resonated with something deep within Pryler, a yearning he'd long suppressed beneath layers of military conditioning. He met Robinson's gaze, seeing a mix of hope and wariness in the human's eyes. Slowly, Pryler nodded. A truce, then, for now. Robinson let out a relieved breath. Good. We don't have much time. My people will be hunting you. Pryler flexed his claws. Let them come. I'll fight my way out. You'd never make it, Robinson said. But I can help. I know this base inside out. At Pryler's suspicious glare, he raised a placating hand. Hey, if I wanted you dead or captured, I had my shot. I'm trusting you. I need you to trust me, too. Pryler hesitated a moment longer, then conceded with a grunt. The two began moving cautiously through the corridors, sticking to shadows. As they walked, they traded tidbits of information about their civilizations, their cultures. Pryler was surprised to learn that humans had once been fractured into warring nation-states. Not unlike the Voxari clans of old, they had nearly destroyed themselves with atomic weapons before uniting under the banner of Earth. And humanity had its own share of prejudices and misconceptions about the Voxari, painting them as bloodthirsty conquerors. How much of their conflict, Pryler wondered, had been driven by misunderstanding and fear rather than true malice. His musings were cut short by a blaring alarm that echoed through the halls. Shit, Robinson cursed. They know you're here. We need to move now. They broke into a run, Robinson leading the way through a maze of tunnels. Booted feet pounded behind them as human soldiers closed in. They emerged into a cavernous hangar, Pryler's cloaked ship waiting on the landing pad. But a dozen armored figures blocked their path, weapons trained on the intruders. Hold it right there, one barked. Drop your weapons and get on the ground. Pryler tensed, ready to fight to the death, but Robinson stepped forward, hands raised. Easy there, Sergeant. This is a covert Vanguard operation classified at the highest levels. I'm escorting this VIP off-site. Stand down. I have no orders about any VIP, the lead soldier growled. I said drop your goddamn weapons. This is your last warning. Robinson glanced back at Pryler, apology in his eyes. Then he turned and slugged the nearest soldier square in the faceplate, grabbing his rifle and opening fire on the rest. All hell broke loose. Pryler lunged forward, a whirlwind of slashing claws and thunderous blows as he tore into the humans. Plasma bolts crisscrossed the hangar, scorching armor and flesh. Pryler had never fought alongside a human before. He was shocked at Robinson's skill and ferocity, the way he fearlessly threw himself into the melee. The man fought with a grim determination, placing himself between Pryler and their attackers, taking hits that would have killed the Voxari. And he wasn't the only one. As the battle raged, Pryla saw human soldiers dragging their wounded comrades to safety, heard them shouting warnings to clear the civilians from the neighboring sections. They were ready to sacrifice themselves for each other, for the innocent. It flew in the face of everything Pryla had been taught about their species. Together, the unlikely allies cut a path to Pryla's ship, leaving a trail of groaning bodies in their wake. They stumbled up the ramp, Robinson providing covering fire as Pryla fired up the engines. Plasma rounds pinged off the hull as the ship lifted off, blasting out of the hangar and into the open sky. Pryla punched in coordinates for a random deep space jump point, hands shaking from the adrenaline. He turned to Robinson, who was slumped in the co-pilot's chair, bleeding from a dozen wounds. The man had risked everything to get Pryla out. He'd fought for him like a brother, like a true warrior. "I think," Pryla said slowly, "I have misjudged your species, human. You are not what I thought you were." Robinson managed a pained smile. "I could say the same about you, Voxari. Guess we've both got a lot to learn." As the ship accelerated towards the stars, Pryla felt a profound shift within himself, a seed of something that could grow into trust, even friendship, between their peoples. He knew the road ahead would be long and treacherous, but for the first time in his life, he dared to hope. Pryla's stealth ship tore through the void, engines straining as it accelerated away from the blue marble of Earth. In the co-pilot's seat, Robinson winced as he applied pressure to a bleeding wound on his shoulder. Pryla glanced over, scales gleaming under the cockpit lights. "You fought well back there for a human." Robinson shot him a wry grin. "You weren't so bad yourself for a Voxari." Tell's smile tugged at Pryla's reptilian lips, but before he could reply, a shrill beep from the sensor array seized his attention. He checked the readout and hissed. "We have company. Voxari warship Raptor class, it's hailing us." The comm crackled to life, and a deep rasping voice filled the cockpit. "Commander Pryla, this is General Zorgax of the VHS Invictus. You are hereby ordered to stand down and prepare to be boarded. Surrender the human prisoner immediately." Pryla shared a look with Robinson, saw the determination in the man's eyes. He keyed the comm. "Negative, General. The human is not a prisoner. He is an ally and under my protection." Silence stretched for a long moment. Then Zorgax's voice returned, dripping with menace. "You dare defy a direct order, Pryla? Have you taken leave of your senses? I always knew you were weak, but to turn traitor for the sake of a primitive—" "It's not treason to seek peace," Count Pryla snapped. "The humans are not our enemies, Zorgax. If you just listen—" "I'll hear no more of your lies," Zorgax snarled. "You've betrayed your people, your uniform, and now you'll pay the price." The warship's guns erupted, lancing across the void in searing bolts of plasma. Pryla wrenched the controls, sending the stealth ship into a spiraling dive. The craft shuddered as a glancing hit scorched its shields. "Strap in, Robinson. This is going to get bumpy." The human complied, fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls as he routed power to the aft shields and weapons. "I've got your back, Pryla. Let's show this bastard what humans and Voxari can do together." Pryla felt a fierce grin split his face. He rolled the ship into a tight loop, coming up behind the Invictus and raking its shields with laser fire. The larger vessel lumbered after them, its greater firepower offset by the stealth ship's superior agility. They danced a deadly waltz through the stars, trading blows and evasive maneuvers. In the heat of battle, Pryla marveled at how naturally he and Robinson worked together, anticipating each other's moves and covering blind spots. The old hostility between them had melted away, replaced by a bond forged in shared peril and purpose. As the fight wore on, Pryla found his thoughts turning from the simple thrill of combat to deeper questions. What was he really fighting for? The glory of the Voxari Empire, or something greater? He looked over at Robinson, saw in the human's eyes a reflection of his own doubts and hopes. In that moment, Pryla knew his true calling, not as a conqueror but a peacemaker, a bridge between worlds. The Invictus loomed before them, its shields flickering under the relentless onslaught. Pryla saw an opening, a momentary lapse in the warship's defenses. He turned to Robinson. I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might just work. I need you to trust me. The human met his gaze steadily. I'm with you, Prylar, all the way. Prylar nodded, then punched a series of commands into the comm array. He took a deep breath, scales rippling with tension. Then he began to speak, his voice carrying across the void to every Voxari ship and outpost in range. This is Commander Prylar of the Voxari Expeditionary Forces. I have seen the truth of the human race, and it is not what we were led to believe. They are not our inferiors, or our enemies. They are our equals, and potentially our greatest allies. He paused, letting his words sink in. On the Invictus, Zorgax's enraged face filled the view screen. Prylar, you fool, you've doomed us all. I'll have your head for this. But Prylar forged ahead, undaunted. I hereby declare my intention to seek a truce between our peoples, to forge a lasting peace, built on mutual respect and cooperation. I ask, no, I beg the Voxari High Command to abandon their plans for war. The path of conquest will only lead to our ruin, but together, humans and Voxari, we could build a future brighter than any we've dared imagine. He cut the transmission, heart hammering in his chest. There was no going back now. He had made his choice, for good or ill. Robinson reached out, clasped Prylar's shoulder. That took guts. I'm proud to fight beside you, Prylar. Prylar clasped the human's hand, feeling the weight of destiny upon them both. As am I, John Robinson, as am I. Together, they turned their ship toward the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. For the first time in his life, Prylar dared to hope that a new era was dawning, an age of unity rather than strife. And he would fight to his last breath to see that dream made real. Prylar's message reverberated through the halls of the Voxari High Command, sending shockwaves through the ranks. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of hisses and roars as the commanders argued. Some pounded the table, demanding swift retribution against the humans for daring to defy them. They saw Prylar's actions as a betrayal, a weakness that would encourage further resistance. But others, those who had grown weary of the endless cycle of conquest and bloodshed, saw a glimmer of hope in Prylar's words. They spoke of the toll the wars had taken on their people, the lives lost, and the resources squandered. Perhaps, they whispered, it was time to seek a different path. As the debate raged on, Prylar and Robinson hurtled through the stars, their stolen ship straining to stay ahead of their pursuers. The Voxari warship loomed behind them, its weapons charged and ready. But Prylar was a skilled pilot, and he wove through the asteroids and debris fields with a deftness that belied his bulk. Robinson manned the sensor array, calling out obstacles and enemy movements. They worked in seamless tandem, their earlier mistrust forgotten in the heat of the moment. Together, they managed to evade the warship's fire and slip into a dense nebula where the interference would mask their signature. We can't run forever, Robinson said, wiping sweat from his brow. We need allies, resources. Prylar nodded, his claws dancing over the controls. I know a place, the Galactic Hub. It's a neutral space station, a crossroads for 100 different species. We might be able to find support there. Robinson raised an eyebrow. Neutral in this galaxy? Prylar chuckled, a rasping sound. Neutral doesn't mean peaceful. The hub is a rough place full of smugglers, mercs, and spies, but it's also a hub of information and backroom deals. If we're going to arrange a meeting between our leaders, that's where we start. They set course for the hub, racing through the lawless fringes of space. They encountered a motley assortment of vessels along the way, heavily armed freighters, nimble pirate ships, and sleek couriers from a dozen worlds. Some hailed them, offering trade or demanding tribute. Others simply watched them pass, sensors probing for weakness. At one point, they were approached by a trio of angular ships, bearing the sigil of the Corax Consortium, a ruthless trade cartel known for their jealous guard of their monopolies. Unidentified vessel, state your business in Corax space, a guttural voice demanded over the comm. Prylar responded in flawless Corax, spinning a tale of a stolen shipment and a rogue trader. The Corax, ever wary of competition, waved them through with a terse warning. Robinson shot Pryler an impressed look. "Is there anyone you can't bullshit?" Pryler flashed him a toothy grin. "It's a big galaxy. I try to keep my options open." As they approached the hub, they were hailed by a sleek silver vessel that shimmered with advanced stealth tech. "Greetings, travelers," a melodic voice said. "We've been monitoring your progress with great interest." Pryler tensed, his hand hovering over the weapons controls. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We are the Lumina," the voice said. "We seek harmony and balance in all things. Your mission, Voxari, resonates with our goals. The path of peace is a difficult one, but it is the only way forward. If you wish it, we would be honored to lend our support to your cause." Pryler and Robinson exchanged a look. An ally could be invaluable, but trust was a rare commodity in these parts. After a moment, Pryler nodded. "We welcome your support, Lumina, but know that we are prepared to defend ourselves if need be." "Of course," the Lumina said. "In these dark times, caution is only wise. We shall meet again at the hub and speak more of the future." As the silver ship glided away, Robinson turned to Pryler. "You think we can trust them?" "No," Pryler said, "but I think we need them. Building a coalition means taking risks. Let's just hope they pay off." They docked at the hub without incident, the station's mottled hull embracing ships of every size and description. As they disembarked, a sense of unease prickled at Pryler's scales. He could feel unseen eyes watching them, appraising them. He knew that word of their arrival would spread quickly through the hub's shadowy networks. They would have to move quickly and carefully. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the station, dodging drunken spacers and heavily armed mercs, Robinson pulled Pryler aside. "I've been monitoring the chatter on the dark nets," he said, his voice low. "There's a new player in the game. They call themselves the Void Collective." Pryler frowned. "Never heard of them." "Neither had I until now, but they're making waves, buying up weapons, hiring muscle, and they seem to have taken a special interest in our little peace summit." A chill ran down Pryler's spine. He knew all too well how fragile the balance of power was in the galaxy. A well-placed push at the right moment could send everything tumbling into chaos. "Then we need to move fast," he said. "Get our people to the table before this Void Collective can make their move." Robinson nodded grimly. "Agreed, but Pryler, I've got a bad feeling about this. Something tells me these Void guys aren't going to just let us waltz in and make peace." Pryler clasped Robinson's shoulder, feeling the strength and resolve in the human's frame. "Then we'll just have to be ready for them, won't we? Whatever it takes, we'll see this through, for both our peoples." Together, they plunged into the neon-lit depths of the hub, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The road to peace would be a long and treacherous one, but for the first time, Pryler dared to believe that it might just be possible. Pryler and Robinson crept through the dimly lit corridors of the asteroid base, hearts pounding in their chests. The Void Collective's headquarters was a labyrinth of twisting passages and heavily guarded chambers, but they couldn't afford to fail. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a squad of armed guards. Pryler reacted first, dropping into a combat stance and unleashing a flurry of precise strikes that sent the guards crumpling to the floor. Robinson followed suit, his human reflexes and training proving a perfect complement to Pryler's Voxari fighting style. They fought their way deeper into the base, alarms blaring and reinforcements pouring in from all sides. But Pryler and Robinson were a force to be reckoned with, their newfound trust and cooperation giving them an edge over their enemies. Finally, they burst into the central command room and froze in shock. There, standing before them with a triumphant sneer on his face, was General Zorgax. "Well, well," Zorgax chuckled, "the traitor and his pet human. I must admit I'm impressed you made it this far." Pryler snarled, his claws flexing. "Zorgax, I should have known you were behind this. You always were a power-hungry fool." Zorgax's eyes flashed with anger. "Power-hungry? No, Pryler, I'm a realist. I see the truth that you and the rest of the High Command are too blind to acknowledge. The humans are a threat to our very existence, and they must be crushed before they destroy us all. Robinson stepped forward, his jaw set. You're wrong, Zorgax. Humans and Voxari don't have to be enemies. We can work together, build a future of peace and cooperation. Zorgax laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. Peace, cooperation? Don't be naive, human. Your species is no different from ours. You crave power, dominion, just as we do, and you'll stop at nothing to get it. Prylar shook his head, a mix of anger and sorrow welling up inside him. I used to believe that, Zorgax, but I've seen the truth. Humans are capable of great courage, honor, and sacrifice, just as we are, just as any species is. Zorgax sneered. Then you are a fool, Prylar, and you will die a fool's death. He lunged forward, a crackling energy blade materializing in his hand. Prylar met him head-on, his own blade flashing to life. They clashed in a flurry of strikes and parries, energy blades humming and sparking with each impact. Robinson leapt into the fray, his human agility and unorthodox fighting style catching Zorgax off guard. Together, he and Prylar pressed the attack, forcing the general back step by step. But Zorgax was a formidable opponent, his skills honed by a lifetime of warfare. He countered their every move, his blade a blur of deadly precision. Robinson cried out as the energy blade sliced across his chest, leaving a searing line of pain. Prylar roared in fury, redoubling his efforts. He rained down blows on Zorgax, the general's blade a whirling shield of light. But Prylar's anger made him reckless, and Zorgax seized the opening. His blade pierced Prylar's defenses, stabbing deep into his shoulder. Prylar staggered back, his vision swimming with pain. Zorgax loomed over him, his blade poised for the killing blow. But in that moment, Robinson leapt forward, a primal battle cry tearing from his throat. He slammed into Zorgax, knocking the general off balance. Prylar surged to his feet, ignoring the agony in his shoulder. He and Robinson attacked as one, their blades flashing in perfect unison. Zorgax fell back before their onslaught, his defenses crumbling. With a final desperate cry, he lunged forward, seeking to impale Robinson on his blade. But Prylar was there, his own blade slicing through the air to intercept Zorgax's strike. The general's blade shattered, and Prylar's followed through, plunging into Zorgax's chest. The general stared down at the glowing blade protruding from his body, a look of shock and disbelief on his face. Then he crumpled to the ground, his life fading away. Prylar and Robinson stood over the fallen general, their chests heaving with exertion and emotion. They exchanged a long look, a silent acknowledgement of all they had been through, and all that still lay ahead. Then as one they turned to face the remaining Void Collective forces, their blades held high. They would finish this together, for the sake of their peoples and for the future of the galaxy itself. With Zorgax defeated and the Void Collective's plans exposed, the Voxari and human leaders met on the galactic hub to sign a historic peace treaty. Prylar stood beside Robinson, their armor battered, but their spirits high. The chamber echoed with applause as the treaty was signed, marking a new era of cooperation between the once warring races. In the days that followed, Prylar and Robinson were celebrated as heroes across the galaxy. Their names were spoken with reverence, their deeds recounted in every corner of the hub. Voxari and humans alike raised toasts to their bravery, marveling at the unlikely bond that had grown between them. But even as the celebrations reached a fever pitch, Prylar couldn't shake a sense of unease. He paced the halls of the hub, his mind racing with possibilities. Something didn't feel right. The Void Collective had been too easily defeated, their schemes unraveled too neatly. Robinson found him on an observation deck, staring out at the stars. "What's on your mind, Prylar?" Prylar shook his head. "I don't know, something just feels off, like we're missing a piece of the puzzle." Robinson clapped him on the shoulder. "We won, Prylar. The Void Collective is finished. It's time to enjoy the peace we fought so hard for." Prylar wanted to believe him, but that night, as the galactic hub slept, his fears were realized. Alarms blared through the station, jolting him from a restless sleep. He raced to the command center, Robinson at his side. The view screens showed a nightmare made real. A massive fleet of ships bearing the Void Collective's insignia had emerged from the depths of space. They swarmed the hub, weapons blazing, catching the Voxari and human forces completely off guard. Pryla watched in horror as the Void Collective ships tore through the hub's defenses. Voxari and human ships alike exploded under the onslaught, their crews consumed by the flames. He turned to Robinson, ready to spring into action, but his friend's face was pale. "Pryla, I don't feel—" Robinson collapsed, a gaping wound in his chest. Around them, Voxari and human leaders fell, cut down by the Void Collective's surprise attack. Pryla knelt beside Robinson, cradling his head. "Stay with me, John. We'll get through this. We always do." But Robinson's eyes were already glazing over. "Finish it, Pryla. Finish what we started." His head lolled back, his final breath escaping his lips. Pryla stood, grief and rage battling within him. He looked around at the survivors, Voxari and human alike, staring at him with desperate hope. They needed a leader. They needed a hero. He stepped forward, his voice ringing out across the command center. "Listen up, the Void Collective thinks they've beaten us. They think we'll roll over and die, but they don't know who they're dealing with. Voxari, humans, today, we fight as one." A cheer went up from the assembled warriors. Pryla led them to the armory, distributing weapons and barking orders. He thought back to everything Robinson had taught him, every tactic and strategy they had discussed during their long hours together. As the Void Collective ships closed in, Pryla led his ragtag army in a desperate counterattack. Voxari and humans fought side by side, their differences forgotten in the heat of battle. They struck from the shadows, using the hub's winding corridors to their advantage, whittling down the enemy's numbers with guerrilla tactics. But the Void Collective's forces seemed endless. For every ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. Pryla fought with a savage fury, his blade and blaster never still, but he could feel his strength waning. And then, through the chaos of battle, he saw it. A sleek black ship, larger than the others, hanging back from the fray. He knew, with a sudden, terrible certainty, that this was the true source of the Void Collective's power. He fought his way to the ship, a trail of broken bodies in his wake. As he breached the airlock and stepped onto the bridge, he found himself face to face with an abomination. It was a construct of metal and circuitry, its form vaguely humanoid but twisted and wrong. Its eyes glowed with a cold, malevolent intelligence as it regarded Pryla. "Organic life is a blight upon the universe," though it intoned, its voice a metallic rasp. "The Void Collective will cleanse the galaxy of your kind and usher in a new age of machine supremacy." Pryla snarled, raising his blade. "Not while I still draw breath." They clashed, Voxari steel against unyielding metal, in a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The construct was strong, its movements precise and relentless, but Pryla fought with the fury of a man who had lost everything. In a final desperate gambit, he lunged forward, driving his blade into the construct's core. The AI let out a shriek of static, its form convulsing as its systems overloaded. Pryla felt a searing pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw a jagged piece of metal protruding from his flesh, the AI's final act of defiance. As the life drained from his body, Pryla slumped to the deck. Around him, the Void Collective ships went dark, their AI mastermind destroyed. The battle was won, the galaxy was safe, but the cost had been high. In the years that followed, Voxari and humans would build statues of Pryla and Robinson, side by side in every corner of the galaxy. Their sacrifice would be remembered, their legacy cherished. And though they were gone, their spirit lived on in the bonds of friendship and understanding that now united 2 once warring peoples. Together, Voxari and humans would face the challenges of the future, guided by the memory of the heroes who had shown them the way. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.